Hello and welcome to another comic series AMA. This month we're going to focus on questions centered on Twilight Princess. Twilight Princess is a Zelda game that came out around the time of the end of the GameCube, beginning of Wii. It was on both systems. It's about saving Hyrule from the encroaching Twilight Realm and figuring out what the villain Zant is getting up to and helping your partner Midna. The last AMA I enjoyed answering off the top of my head with a few bullet points, so I'm going to try that again here. This month we only have one round of questions from Aquasun, the first of which is, how difficult was it to draw Twilight Princess's darker and more detailed character design and art style into your comic style? For example, Wolf, Link, the monsters, Midna. It actually wasn't too bad. I tend to simplify stuff anyway, and Twilight Princess is one of those series that I was more familiar with from my youth, so like I already kind of had images of them in my head, just generally, so even without looking at direct references, I already had, like the monsters had like the circular head, and then like the sort of tentacly hair and like lanky bodies, and any more details I could look up references if I wanted to get more specific. Which honestly, finding the references was probably more of a hard part than the actual drawing, especially because this series was in the tonal style, so I didn't really have to worry about like specific colors and stuff, just like which parts were the darkest and lightest and medium. And especially compared to like Xenoblade designs, Twilight Princess is a lot easier. Next question. Where do you put Twilight Princess in your ranking of Zelda games? What do you think of the game overall? So of the ones I've played, I'll give a just general list of which ones from least favorite to my favorite. Probably won't go too in depth, but at least favorite would be Oracle of Seasons, which I still enjoyed, and I haven't actually finished it yet. But it was very difficult for me to grasp. Probably because it was like an older game and like not as much direction, and I think it's a Game Boy game, so like you can't really see the map very well, and like they did what they could, but it made navigation really hard. Next in line would be Phantom Hourglass. I did really enjoy the game, but that Temple of the Ocean King repeating thing just really kind of sucked me out of it, and like the different control scheme was a little bit hard to get used to. Next would be Skyward Sword. Same thing, the control scheme, like, it worked fine enough for me, but it was enough of a sort of obstacle, I guess, that I didn't really think of, like, oh, I want to play that again. It's like, and then, like, the linearness of it and the repeating areas also kind of was like, And I still enjoyed it, though. It's more of one I'd like to watch rather than play. Starting with Link Between Worlds, this is one that I actually should try and play again. One of these days. I really did enjoy it when I played it the first time, and the controls were really nice. It's more of a matter of me just pulling out my 3DS now I'm thinking about it. After that would be Breath of the Wild. I have really enjoyed Breath of the Wild when I played it, but it hasn't like grabbed me as much as some other Zelda games. But in terms of the gameplay, I would say it's probably the most fun, just running around and doing all sorts of stuff. But I do think I like a little bit more of a linear Zelda, personally. Next would be Ocarina of Time. I really do enjoy this game a lot, and there's a lot of nostalgia, and I do like how more kind of smaller and focused it is. I would say the biggest downside for me is just, like, the controls are a little, like, they feel very slow and, like, clunky. Like, they work, but I'm definitely feeling the age these days. And then after Ocarina would be Twilight Princess. Twilight Princess, I really do enjoy. At most for a, like, negative, if I could say, is, like, it lacks a little bit of identity. I would say it's, like, the sort of baseline for, like, what a Zelda is. And it's got, like, the Twilight and the wolf and stuff. But the biggest thing would probably be, like, Midna jumping out as a core concept of what made it unique, which she is great, but like, I don't know, I do think it might have leaned a little too much on Ocarina of Time, but only like a little. Like it did do things to differentiate itself. I think it just needed like a little bit more. But otherwise, I really do like it. It is, there's only 2 more above it in my list, so it is technically top 3. Oh, and the gameplay is also pretty tight, so I do also enjoy that. Next would be Wind Waker. This was one of the ones I had, so it was like one of my childhood copy ones, and I really love, obviously, the art style. Made it really approachable as a child. The gameplay is really fun. Obviously, there are a few parts that, like, you can tell these days, oh, okay, this was kind of rushed because these parts are, like, underdeveloped, but I do have a very big soft spot for it, and I really do enjoy the world a lot. And then, last, but literally not least, it's at the top, is Majora's Mask. Obviously, you might think, oh, well, doesn't it have the same sort of clunky feel that Ocarina does? No, actually. It feels a lot faster. It feels a lot more, like, tight in the controls personally. And I think that it also does help that you have the different forms with the mask. So, like, Deku Link walks a little bit faster and the spinning feels faster. Goron Link can roll. You get opponent pretty, decently early. Swimming is a lot easier with the Zora. So, like, there's all these options for you to move around. And the world being smaller, I think, also helps to make it not feel as like, oh god, it takes forever to get from this end to that end. But then obviously there's also the world building and such of Majora's Mask that I just adore. I said I wouldn't ramble, but I did. I can't help it. I really like Zelda games. Honestly, even Oracle of Seasons, which was my least favorite, I do still really like. Like, I'd be hard pressed to say there's any of these that I like dislike. It's more so the ones at the end of the list, or the least favorite, rather. Those are ones I'd rather watch, but I still like them, right? Like, I would seek out content for them. It was very hard to make this list, especially the top part, though. And honestly, the placements could change depending on the day and my mood. The last question from Aquasun and for this AMA: did some of the comedic dynamic between Comic Link and Comic Midna influence how you wrote your Breath of the Wild comics? In a manner of speaking, yes. Both are based on playthroughs I did with the same person. Unfortunately, I don't really interact with that person much anymore, so we're unlikely to see that exact dynamic in future comics. And that is the last question for the month. So let's head on over to the end screen. You can see my lovely patrons scrolling on by with their patron NPCs. Patron NPCs show up in comics as any sort of slot that I need, like a not described person to be like saying something, or a villager, stuff like that. If you're interested in asking a question, like one of these videos or any of the other rewards that come along with supporting me, check out the link to my Patreon in the description. Rewards include seeing comics before they're posted publicly, behind-the-scenes drawings, voting on which comic series will be featured next month, and more. Even without pledging, you can have access to things like preview panels, coloring pages, and occasionally some of the lower-tiered rewards as a little taste of what pledging can get you. Thank you to everyone who asked a question and anyone who watched the video. The support means a lot to me. Until next month. Bye!